Welcome to the latest edition of Writers on Writing, the interview series from Atlanta, Canada, that's been running since about this time last year. We're into one full year in the series. And friends, I could not be more stoked and thrilled and stoked, I'll tell you, to have as my guest on this conversation Brian Venable, based in Memphis, Tennessee, USA, of the band Lucero. And if you know anything about alternative or independent music for the past 25 or 30 years, hopefully that name is going to ring out for you. Hopefully it's going to resonate. If not, you got to do yourself a favor and just stop what you're doing right now and do that Google search. But Brian is the lead guitar player with Lucero since its inception back in 1998, if you can believe it. He's played, lead guitar, and he's also played other sort of instrumentation, been involved with the writing, been involved with all kinds of aspects of a long-running touring and recording entity that's still putting out music. And he just came off tour these past couple of weeks. That was the 20th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, for the Nobody's Darlings record, was that?
Yeah, it was the last of technically last year was, and then we just kind of ran over. So, yeah. But yes, that record, which scarily enough was not our first record. It's like our third, fourth record, is 20 years old. So
absolutely. And Brian and I are sort of the same kind of vintage, I guess you could say, into our decades. And Brian is, as well as being very accomplished, long practicing musician, also really deeply into the visual art world, which we're going to talk about, and as well, I guess, more in keeping with the mandate of this show, somewhat also deep into the writing world. He has a new book of poetry that's been available just since the beginning of the year, I want to say. Brian, you put that out in January. It's been available on your website,
right? January, February, yeah. I was running. It took me a little longer to put out than I anticipated.
And if you follow Brian on any of his social media, he's got his own Instagram and Facebook. You're also behind the Lucero accounts, if I'm not mistaken, are you? You're kind of the web person.
I am. I think that everybody has such a strong independent social media that our management's just like, you guys are killing us, man. And so I've been bad about it posting, but I kind of started posting more. And somebody, I don't know, it gives it a behind the scenes. It gets a little bit more whatever. But yeah, finally they were like, please do this. And I was all like, okay. So I've been mostly me being archival about things. It's either on the road or, hey, this picture's 30 years old or something. So I have a large collection, but I try to keep it slightly interesting and just
absolutely interesting and eclectic. And as well, again, if you check out Brian's personal social media, in addition to the band's, I do recommend strongly, folks, that you visit VenableExplorationSociety.com, the website. .org. My sincere apologies.
No.
VenableExplorationSociety.org.
And then I decided to jokingly make it an organization, so I made it org.
Well, there we go. And you're going to see a goodly amount of paintings, which you can buy direct from Brian. You're going to see the opportunity to purchase what is now the third printing of this poetry book, really selling really strongly. I tried to get in on the first two, and by the time I managed to get to the website, it was already sold out.
The second one was just on tour, so that's why that was an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, well, gotcha. I was like, I didn't want to. People get weird when you don't mail it immediately, kind of thing. And I was like, I can't sell these and be gone for 3 weeks, so I'm going to sell them on the road, just put them on the table. And then I came home, and that's what I've been doing now. I was like, okay, I'm home. I can mail them. So
awesome. And I managed to get in on that third printing.
Are you really from Atlanta, Canada? Is that literally?
I'm in the east coast of Canada, right? So,
but it's called Atlanta.
Well, it's Atlantic Canada. It's kind of like Atlantic, on the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah.
No, I get it. I just for a minute there I was all like, wait a minute, did he say Atlanta? Hell yeah.
No, I would love to. I would love to visit Atlanta. It'd
have been funny to have an Atlanta, Canada. Like that would have been like, I didn't need a T-shirt from that.
I would too, as a matter of fact. But nah, right now I'm actually based in the small, very small place. It's called St. Stephen, New Brunswick. It's right across the border. I'm literally within 2 or 3 miles of the border with Calais, Maine, if you can imagine such a thing. Tiny little spot in your country, but it's the
Yep.
closest I've ever lived to your country. And so there's been a lot of change, a lot going on, especially over the past decade. I think it's fair to say we might get into that, we might not, just in terms of
It's just,
international politics, or probably that'll be the least interesting thing we talk about. But from my vantage point, it's been interesting to watch
oh, it's
as a
been interesting
Canadian.
for touring. Like we used to be able to just drive through, you're like, woo, and then leave and be like, we're American. They're like, okay. And now it's like, buckle up. We're going to be here for a little bit and they're going to search everything.
Got to take that into consideration when you're an international touring act, for sure, right? So I guess, Ryan, just to begin with, we're going to cover all these sort of three general areas that we kind of have laid out here. And folks, as I say, do visit the website, because in addition to the paintings, in addition to the opportunity to buy the book, if you're a fan of independent music at all over the past 25 or 30 years, just the photography there is also really first rate. There are some nifty insights, and going to punk shows, going to hardcore and independent shows, as I did as a teenager back in the 90s, way back in the 90s. I think what I found doing these interviews and checking in with people is that even though these scenes were all really different and independent from each other in a lot of ways, there were also a lot of similarities.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's one thing where I look at, I've got a couple of teenagers. They are, in 14, 16 years old, and they're kind of just discovering music a bit now themselves, kind of, but they don't know what it's like to not have an interconnected world. They don't know what it's like to be
That's
doing
what,
your whole enterprise based on flyers and, the telephone calls and using a map to get from places to
well, that
places
was
that isn't connected to your phone.
my kid's 16. No, he's not 16 anymore. Jesus Christ. He's 17. He's about to graduate high school, but he's just discovered hardcore. He's been listening to different kinds of music, but him and his friends have got into it. And the funniest part is trying to explain, because for them, it's like I came up in the mid 80s into the 90s. So, but it was like, they just see it as like the 90s or the old. And I'm like, that band and that band didn't get along. If you listen to that band, you couldn't, like I was trying to explain different scene aspects. And they were like, you just didn't all listen to the same thing. They're like, no, there's your straight edge kids, your punk rock kids, your skin. Yeah, I was like, so it's interesting that they see it all as one big, oh shit, shoot, what did I do? One big thing. Sorry, I keep touching buttons. And
It's all good.
so that's been the funnest part is he just writes them down. He goes and looks online. We did last night. We set up for a couple hours. I was pulling out records, going, "You need to listen to this and this." So it's real exciting for me to be able to be like, even if it's just like a month, I'm like, yes. But yeah, they don't see it as they don't see it as a scene. It's it's the music, like. And that's where I'm like, you need to listen to these new bands so you can go to the shows, so you can meet people, that's how the zines and that's how books and that's how bands get started. But right now it's so funny because he just is like hardcore, punk rock. And I'm all like, jazz.
It's this homogeneous entity, which it's content to them, right? That's where
Yeah,
I
that's
sort of
what I'm
see the
saying. It's
kids who
just
have grown up with
interesting.
online stuff since they were born. It's like it's just a
Well,
different type of content.
it's just
So
like, me being like, oh, I love jazz. And when I first heard jazz, I was like, okay. But it's like, you can't say you like jazz. At some point, you end up being like, I like free jazz. I like hard bop, or I don't like, And, but yeah, it's been fun trying to, because they're just clueless. They're just watching YouTube videos and this and that. And I'm all like, it's just hilarious that he's got the longest hair in the world. And he's just listening to all these skinhead bands right now and all these old hardcore bands. And I'm just all like, I wouldn't have been friends with you growing up. It's like not even an ugly thing. It's not necessarily right, but it was like, I grew up like this, and it would have been like, oh, you're like that. And that's what's interesting is that isn't hardcore in general. It's interesting that used to, demos would have to get passed around by touring bands, or you'd write letters. Now it's like, I can't even pronounce it. But there's a band out of Florida called Spanish Needles. I think that's what it is. Spanish, yeah. And they're amazing. But I talk to them online a lot, and they give me band names. There's a band in Beirut right now that is just these kids. They play basement squats, and they sound like Universal Armageddon. They're just hard. They're just freak out. I'm like, can you imagine? I would have never found, you know what I mean? But it's like, I'm listening to stuff like that I think they have like 900 people on their Instagram, which might be a lot, you know what I mean? Like, and I have friends that are like, how the did you find a, Lebanese hardcore band? I'm like, I don't know. I met somebody that met somebody or something. So, but yeah, that's the interesting part is Bandcamp is better for that. You can still find stuff, but it is interesting that it's so immediate now. Like you were saying, like you can discover the smallest, but they can be a band for 10 minutes. If they post online with some songs, 200 people know who they are, instead of like playing for a year in front of their friends and then going to tour 2 towns over and then slowly working their way to a whole tour. It also means that the bands end quicker sometimes, which is here or there, I guess. But
And then there's also sort of these larger acts, like I think of Turnstile. I had this conversation with my kid. I was like, he was trying to tell me, have you checked out Butthole Surfers or something like this? And I'm like, yeah, they were cool. They were wild back in the day. But if you're looking for somebody sort of contemporary, kind of carrying the torch, it seems like those dudes get mentioned a lot, right? Just as an
Turnstile,
example.
I mean, that's the thing is, that's what's interesting. I'm going to turn this fan off.
Sure, no problem.
That might help. I feel like there's a low grade hum through this whole thing. Turnstile, I mean, the thing is, they're pedigreed. They came up out of Baltimore. They did hardcore. They didn't, their sound's getting a little smoother, but I think the last 2 records were amazing. I like watching the old white guys argue about if it's hardcore or not. That's my favorite. I go on No Echo. It's a bunch of Archie Bunkers like, that's not hardcore. And I was like, it's not much anymore. But also, Knocked Loose, that Geese band. This right now, what's about to happen again is another case of like, not necessarily hardcore, but it's going to be weird, heavy music with square clothes. And, like there's going to be some, that kind of stuff is what's up and coming right now. And I mean, those Turnstile shows, there's like what, 5,000 kids circle pitting. They're having the time of their life, Again, are they going to go home and do zines and Food Not Bombs? Not all of them, some of them, it's like, but it's like anything is True Till 21 or like, there's plenty of people that saw the Dead Kennedys while they were in college or something and then went on to listen to Steely Dan or what, I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's going to be interesting to watch it again. I mean, I'm 54 years old. I've lived through 3 or 4 of these. You know what I mean? Like, that's the crazy thing where it's like, oh, Green Day. Oh, At the Drive-In. Oh, Promise Ring. Oh, like it's every 10 years, it seems like they rediscover this stuff,
Independent guitar-based music, right? That's really what it comes down to.
And I mean, the fact that's a little different now is it's like Turnstile got nominated for 5 Grammys. That's crazy.
That's right.
And I think they won 2 of them, but it's like, but yeah, it's, I don't know. It's like hip hop and anything. It's like at some point it was underground, and then when it kind of took off, it's going to infuse everything. So, there's people that I know that are like, their first exposure to punk rock was Dookie by Green Day.
Right. Same.
And I'm just like, golly, I've been going to shows for 10 years before that, but my first 2 punk records for me were Violent Femme's first record and Metallica's Ride the Lightning. I'd never heard any music like that in my entire life,
Both classics for sure.
But within 2 or 3 months, it was like, oh, TSOL or GBH. Oh, Gnostic Front. Oh, and then there was local bands. And then, Corrosion of Conformity. You start finding them and you just, again, you find the record, you see who they thank, you go buy those records or you go get somebody to take those records or whatever. So it's, I'm trying not to be a gatekeeper in my old age. I got on to my son's friend. He was listening to some band that they look like Tool from 1992. And I was like, nope, fuck Tool. And then but I got all like, listen to regular, and I was like, and then I was like, nope, I just did what I swear I wouldn't do. The next day they were listening to Dag Nasty, and I was like, oh, and I apologized. I was like, man, you find what you like. It's not my thing, but I all of a sudden was like, that's not punk rock. And yeah, you'll scare everybody off if you do that.
Well, exactly. And I think actually that, in a way, kind of leads into the first written out kind of question I've got, because folks, you may not be aware of this who have watched the series at all, but I do prepare questions in advance. I'm a career teacher, and therefore I have been known to go off on a bit of a tangent or tirade. So I had to ask, in as much as Lucero has now been making music, touring, recording, playing for close to 30 years. I mean, prior to that, you would have been in your 20s, sort of coming up in the scene, as it were. Was music part of your life at home? Did you have parents who
Yeah,
encouraged that interest? Did you take piano lessons? Did you play a drum kit or anything when you were younger?
my
How did
dad.
that journey begin for you?
I actually didn't want to do music. My dad, um, I guess the first in our family. Nobody was really musical, but then my dad discovered it, and he uh, he played bass on Bill Street and blues bands. He plays guitar. He records stuff, And he was always like, I spent most of the '90s riding Greyhound buses, trying to hop trains, and just basically touring, but without a band. And he was all
Okay.
like, man, you just learn 3 scales on a bass, and you can start a band. You can travel and get paid for it. I was all like, that sounds like a nightmare, And so, I mean, that's the running joke was I literally did not know how to play guitar when we started this band. Like there was 3 songs. I knew the 3 songs. When there were 7 songs, I knew the 7 songs. That's what I could play on guitar. And so this was,
And
yeah,
so was that like a social connection that kind of drew you towards that, where you met up with Roy and Ben and then John and then, or was that sort of something where,
I
I
think
mean,
for me, for years, I was all like, I want to start I am not on the phone. What do you, huh? Yeah, sorry. Um, do you need something? Okay. I'm sorry. Um, I got sick of hardcore. Like at some point, I was like, "This is boring. This is terrible." I don't know. You just, for a long time, it's like, and then I had discovered. It's a very rare this happens anymore, or ever really. But there was somebody dumped a pile of records on the curb, like and it was a Joe Jackson live, a Buck Owens live, Leonard Skinner, all this crazy stuff. Like things you're like, these are incredible records. Um, and I don't know the Skinner thing. I mean, that's kind of where I found like my southernness, which was an interesting like. At the time, even I knew it was like, no, I don't want to be. I had some Confederate flag stuff at the time because that's just what it was. But slowly, I was like, no, I want to be Faulkner, not Skinner or whatever. But when you discover Skinner, which is incredible band.
absolutely.
But that's where you find T is for Texas, T is for Tennessee, and that leads you back to the Carter family, and that leads you back to Jimmy Rogers, Carter family, um, and then kind of circle
Timeless
around.
folk music, right? In its way.
Well, that's the thing. It was just kind of like I also discovered R&B around that same time because I worked at this donut shop, and they listened to WDIA, which is one of the first like it wasn't black owned operated, but it was Memphis, like Rufus Thomas and all these BB King and all these kids were DJs when they were younger. And Marcella worked the front counter and I worked in the back. But I'd hear these songs be like, what is this? My parents never listened to R&B. You know what I mean? Um, Not saying everybody's parents. My dad liked the blues, well, but and folk music. But all of a sudden it was like, I come out, what is this Rubber Band Man song? What is this you're only now? What? And she was just older black lady, just cracking up because I kept running in every 10 minutes, going, what is that? You could just see this dumb little white kid who only listened to punk rock and kind of thing, and just discovering soul music basically. But at the same, it was kind of like, man, Leonard Skinner, Molly Hatchet, blah, 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 and I was like, and that's where I started trying to do like Hunter S. Thompson, if he was born in the South, writing type stuff. Like I was, I got really into it, and I wanted to start a Southern rock band. Now, when I say that, it's like knowing full well that I did not know how to play an instrument. I figured, and that's the beauty of what I feel like growing up, punk rock, hardcore, whatever, is everything you've ever read about these bands. They're always like, he didn't know how to sing. Nobody, you just figured it out. Ironically, or not ironically, but how we phrase this, they were learning punk rock, which you can do that. I'm all like, I'm going to start a Southern rock band, not knowing how to play, or like looking back now with age and experience, it's like, yeah, nope. Like you can get a group of guys together and be like, jing, 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 and seeing people like, woo, your friend group, but yeah, that's why all the early Lucero stuff was like sparse notes and open spaces. It's like, when in doubt, lay out, or I would just be like, I don't know, like, and yeah, all I wanted to do was a demo, maybe have a 7-inch. I had a list. I still wanted to paint. I'm working on my novel right now. You know what I mean? I've put out zines and travel zines, but it's like, I mean, that was the thing, is like, I don't want to be Brian from Lucero. I want to be Brian that plays in Lucero, that does all, so in the beginning, there was like, I had a whole list of things I wanted to do. And then it kind of, for a long time, turned into, there's probably a little OCD involved. Friends of mine say I get hyper focused, but basically, yeah, I was like, I got to learn how to play guitar. I got to push this band. I got, I lived, breathed, and ate and slept, whatever, Lucero. But that's, I'm still not technically a great guitar player, but I kind of created a sound for myself,
Right. Very
and,
much so. I would totally agree with that.
but that's the thing is, and I asked everybody, let's start a band, let's start a band. Ben Nichols, not being from Memphis at the time, just moved there, did not know that I was basically trying to sucker somebody into starting a band. And so he was like, yeah, because he'd had these songs, and in the beginning it was like Tom Waits, The Replacements, The Pogues, and those are the good influences, really.
All very, very legit, right? For sure.
But realistically, we should have been Rick Springfield, Huey Lewis and the News. Those are the bands that we really liked. You know what I mean? We like those other bands. Those are the cool. You don't go up to people going, hey, do you want to start a Rick Springfield type? You want to write catchy pop songs? You want to write some R&B type? Like nobody's like, no, I don't want to start a Huey Lewis and the News band. 38 Special, like, but you got to give them the cool ones. Like, yeah.
And this, if I may, I mean, not to get all, pseudo rock critic here, but when I tried to describe part of the reason why I enjoy Lucero so much is because for sure you have the punk, for sure you have the hardcore kind of influence, but then the Rick Springfield, there's sort of this mainstream sensibility that encompasses R&B, country music, and it's one of those things where I could sort of see your band being more of a wider commercial presence, like on like a country music circuit or like a folk music circuit, right? Like some of these,
that's
larger commercial acts, I guess.
Is that what we've come to learn? We would be farther along if we were easier to pigeonhole.
I agree, probably.
And that's the thing, is everybody's like, oh, they're hard to describe. They're this, and so for the country people, we're not country enough. For the rock people, we're not rock enough. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the joke, is like, we all like, oh yeah, we fit into all these molds, but the people in those molds, some people like it, but a lot of times they're like, no, if we play with Turnpike, Troubadours, or we play with these country bands, and it's like, we're a scary punk rock band, we're a scary rock and roll band, but we're like, no, we threw the country stuff at them, and they're like, or we go out with the Menzingers and we try to throw out the rock stuff, and they're like, oh man, you're so country, we love it, and we're just like,
you've got your own space though, and it's really well defined.
And great. I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, it would be great if it was. I'd love to be a one-hit wonder and still be touring. Like, yeah, if we had a Me and Mrs. Jones or whatever, and we had a song in a John Hughes movie, it was like, frick yeah, the house is paid for. That's grown up me talking, you know.
Exactly so.
But whatever purist me is all like, man, we've had a great, you know, like we're treading a little bit too deep into the, we don't. It's an interesting place to be basically a white tattooed guy with a beard singing about your feelings right now. You know, like we're a little bit of a dinosaur. Everybody's like, they've been hearing that for 100 years, you know, and yeah, and it's like as much as we struggle, that's what's interesting too, because there's a lot of bands. They're like, oh wow, you bought a house, wow, you ride on a tour bus, poor you. And we're like, no, 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 you know. And that was always the joke for us is like every time you step up a level, you basically have to start over, you know, and then work. You're like, I only imagine bands like U2, somebody somewhere is making their life hell, you know, whether it's Apple Music or somebody's going, you got to do this. And they're like, no, we're
They're
U2.
putting the gears on them at their level, right?
Yeah.
That's
And that's the thing. And so, yeah. So it's been interesting to try to like, I mean, post COVID, the music industry's, especially for just touring bands, you know, it's been interesting, but yeah, I mean, we pretty much did it the way we did it. Like looking back, I used to joke, it's like we got a manager and we're like, okay, we're going to try to get them to make us as famous as possible, but then we're going to stop them as much as possible. And whatever that middle ground is, we're happy, you know? And now we're like, man, it would have been cool if we didn't try to maybe stop them so much, just a little bit, you know? But but yeah, and again, we're in year 27. Come April 15th, I think. Holy crap, this month we'll turn 28 years old. Golly. Um, I gotta write that on the calendar. I'll forget to post about that. But yeah, who knew we were gonna do anything for like I used to joke with my kids' friends, they're all in bands, and I'm like, don't pick the best player, pick the person you can get along with the best, because you might be stuck with them for 30 years. You can teach somebody to play bass. You can't teach somebody to not be an asshole, you know? And so, but yeah, it's just interesting that for not knowing what I was doing, we just jumped into it and we're still figuring it out as we go.
well, and if I may, I mean, I think that that's something that the people who are fans of your band's music, they see something of themselves in that how you're carrying it, right? That there's a relatability there,
Yeah.
and
Well, I mean, that's the
that's
thing.
that's something of the case between any kind of artist of any merit and any kind of fan who takes the art form seriously, right? I mean, I'm this kind of to you just this dude up in Canada somewhere, and you know that I'm out there, and maybe you check my social media posts, maybe not. But the fact is, like, I've never been to a Lucero gig, but I can say for sure that your music has meant tremendous a lot to me over the years,
Yeah.
right? And I've just been one of these people that's kind of out there, and every time one of your album comes out, I'm just like, fucking a, they're still,
Yeah. Well,
they're
I
they're
think,
they're they're still going at it, right? And in just whatever way. And it's the same way that I know that you, for instance, like, and any artist that I've talked to in these interviews have been the biggest music bands in the world, right? And so, you mentioned, to get just to turn the conversation just a tad here, you mentioned William Faulkner, you mentioned Hunter S. Thompson. I
yeah.
mean, you're talking about Southern, there's a deep musical tradition where you're from, huge, deep, rich musical tradition. But I mean, let's not forget the significant literary culture and influence that's almost steeped in the American South. And so I kind of have to wonder, again, just as you were growing up, I mean, did you see narrative as something that you wanted to participate in? Were you one of these people kind of writing stories or shitty poems or whatever? You kind of mentioned that you got into zines for a while.
Yeah.
Girls on Crack, that was a publication of yours, if I
Man,
may.
it was a terrible, yeah. That was we had heard it somewhere. Somebody had said something, whether it was TV or at the donut shop. I forget where we heard it, but it was like that girl's on crack, and we were like, write that down. That was, Nowadays,
It
I've
gets
been like,
attention, sure. I mean,
well, I mean, it's
Steve, it was your
attention.
Steve Albini moment, maybe slightly with
Well, I
that
mean,
one, or
again, we quickly were like, yeah, that's terrible. I mean, it's a little uh, not a what is it, misogynistic to some degree. It can be,
if you
but
want to be really particular and overly sensitive about things, sure. But
well,
it
again,
also,
it's better to be that way sometimes, I think, than not. But at the time, we were like, we can do better. We again, the whole joke with that particular one was we didn't have air conditioning at the house. I worked at the donut shop. Chris, the guy I wrote it with, he worked at Blockbuster. He would get off of work at 10. I'd get done around 11 or 12, and we would go to Kinko's because it was air conditioned. And then we made friends with the guy that worked there, so we got everything for free. Like, that's 30 years ago, but we were basically stealing from. But it was like we would stay there till like 6 in the morning, just working, just finding garbage and Xeroxing it, finding old pictures because it was a Kinko's Wolf camera or whatever. Um, and yeah, and so I mean, I think I have a very active imagination. Is the kind
I
of
would
scenario.
say that as well, because when again I look at your social media posts, I mean, you have gardening, you have skateboarding, you have things about your, son, your young man, you have your family life, and a lot of this is like, okay, well, middle-aged dude with an Instagram, sure, sure, but it also shows a really eclectic range of interests. And so when I see the guitar player for one of my favorite bands sort of putting himself out there as, okay, well, I've got these visuals, right? These paintings.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of like, okay, there's a certain aesthetic to them. It looks like something, even just the titles themselves of your works and of this no doubt highly lit collection of poetry, the titles are very evocative. They almost tell a little narrative there themselves.
Well,
And
that's
so there's sort of like this underlying imaginative kind of aesthetic or sensibility going on there. And I just kind of have to wonder, okay, well, was there a long run up to that to discover, painting with oil? Was there a
the
long
paintings.
run up to, putting together? Because when I saw how you put this book together, right, this hand sewn binding, this just really lovely aesthetic quality to it as a sort of handmade work of art, it's like, okay, this brings me back to doing a zine in my own
Well,
little, small Canadian town back in the late 90s. But then also, it just kind of speaks to somebody who's got a whole lot of need to express how he sees the world beyond, as you say, maybe just being Brian from Lucero.
I mean, and this is a fun play. I think we did stuff growing up. I mean, probably his friends come over and I let them play in the art room and they're like, arts and crafts. It's like, don't call it arts and crafts. Um, I didn't go to arts class. I dropped out in the 10th grade. You know what I mean? I didn't have an art teacher that inspired me, but I was surrounded by those people. I feel like, yeah, I mean, I always was trying to write stuff down. I was just kind of a meathead for a long time. Um, and like I said, I've discovered, like, for me, the poetry, don't write some long-winded you're not writing ad copy. Get to the point. You're trying to fight, fuck, or fucking run. That's pretty much what all poetry should be about. You
I
don't have to
agree.
write 47 pages about whatever. And it's like I could, I guess, but it just seems to be long-winded. Um, but my friend Matt Bradley with the broken tooth and the tears don't matter much.
Right.
He had been in art school forever, but we would sit around. We didn't have TV. We lived in all these 12 people to more in these houses, and it would be like, that's how bands got started. That's how, like, one year for Christmas, I've been sober like 13, 14 years now.
Congratulations, man. Honestly.
Yeah. But I would get hammered drunk. I bought a bunch of material and got a sewing machine, and I made everybody stuffed animals one year. I didn't use a pattern. I'd just be like, and he was laughing because he was like, if you wrote an artist theme on that, that's like people, that's what art school teaches you. You know what I
You
mean?
could get a grant. You could put that up in a gallery. You could have a show.
And that's the joke is like everything we grew up doing, dumb shit. he did a series of cardboard guitars of famous guitars of the 80s, like Joe Satriani with tinfoil. Like, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, we would do that when the electricity was out, or this. And he's like, I know, it's crazy. And so, but again, I would have, I was too young. I mean, I'm one of those people that's like, I would crush it at school now. I would be like, I'm studying philosophy and I'm reading these books, I'm writing stuff, this art stuff. I mean, math would be kind of still a struggle, but I'm just saying, is like, for the most part, it's like education was wasted on my youth. You know what I mean? Like, I just had no business. I mean, literally was like, what are you going to do? I mean, I was getting the maximum amount of licks from the teachers. They couldn't paddle me anymore. My mom was like, he can't come home because that's like a vacation. So they put me in school suspension for pretty much the last years, because they didn't know it. And I dropped out to go work full time, but it's like, I wasn't going to college. I was a shoe repairman, but luckily, or whatever. But yeah, at the time it was like, no cops, no parents, no teachers. You know what I mean? Like, I just was authority was like, no. And now it's like, I got things I'm about to start trying to read Hegel, and it's going to beat everything I've read, Hegel adjacent, everything I've read, Zizek, Derrida, all these guys keep falling. I'm like, I guess I got to go to the source. I tried to teach myself Arabic so I could argue with the lady at the spice store because I think she was gringo in me, but I don't think I can teach myself Arabic. It's a little hard. I tried to teach myself physics once. I was like, how hard could it be? Man, this page 2 of your basic 4 structure. Like, I was like flipping a penny over. I was like, yeah, I'm lost. So there's certain things I'm well aware that, it's like the novel that I'm trying to write. I'm working on a set of my next book is going to be a set of memoir style stories of growing up, blowing things up, just being a hood rat. But I'm working on a 12 chapter that ties in. It's very complex. It's going to have dialogue, like the walk away, she said, as the door slowly closed. I don't know how to write.
It's sort of a conventional sort of longer form novel kind of narrative.
I'm probably writing a 400-page that each chapter ties into the next chapter, but it's like I've got one whole book with it's so many moving parts. It's like, we'll see if I get it done, but I've never written. I don't know grammar. You know what I mean? Every 6 weeks when it would be literature, I'd kill it. And then the next 6 weeks I'd fail because it was like the little arrows with grammar and this, and I'm like, I don't know. And so, yeah, school was not for me. I probably would have found out a whole lot more if I'd have went to one of those Montessori or whatever that you do whatever you want schools. But also, nobody's there to tell me I can't. Nobody was there to tell me I couldn't play guitar. Nobody was there to tell me I couldn't paint. Nobody was there to tell me anything. And I think that's one of the best things. And, I'm surrounded by not only people that will tell me, oh, it's great. I'm also surrounded by the same people that will be all like, try again. You know what I mean? And
they care about you enough to give you their honest opinion.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So like, because there's a lot, like that book of poetry's, some of those poems are almost 30 years old. That's more of a history of growing up in a 6-block radius and front porches and drunk and, relationships, and it kind of moves in. But yeah, I mean, the music, I play guitar, I'll play whatever. It doesn't scare me. The poetry stuff, I love it. I think I'm a great poet, which is a weird thing to say out loud, but it still makes me nervous as hell, And then I think I'm looking at people to be all like, I used Dizzy like in 4 different poems, and I was a little bit like, I used Dizzy too much, but I liked it worked. You know what I mean? But I got worried about like, oh crap. And that's what I looked at when I looked at those poems. When I reread them, I'm all like, oh.
And so, if I may, when it comes to sort of testing out these works, I mean, do you sort of keep it more or less to yourself? Or, I mean, have you been out in public doing readings? Like, do you take any
this
venues?
Is all new. I have a guy here that usually I wear a hat, and I was about to put my hat back. That's funny. Muscle memory. I've made a new friend that is a rare bookseller and a small batch printer, and he
Is
wants me
that
to read.
Black Tulip Press?
Yeah, that guy's
Awesome.
that guy's the worst, best new. Like, he's got my number. He's like, I got these books. I'm like, fuck you, man. I got to pay. I got
If
about
you
50.
ever visit Brian's personal website or his various social media, what you're going to see is a very, very, to my mind, enviable shelf collection of books. And you put those pictures up there, and sometimes I can sort of read the spines and go, man, that is some legit cool stuff from just a literature kind of standpoint,
Yeah.
literature and writing. I mean, you made a comment on, my Instagram thing. I put up a thing yesterday where, like, my kid, he discovered
Oh,
Harlan Ellison
Harlan.
at age
I've never
40.
even heard of him. And then I don't know where I saw it or somebody was reading it. But again, that's circling back for a second back to punk rock coming up with records.
Yep.
My thing is with these books, I'll read a book and they'll reference. I'll buy 6 books sometimes off of reading one book. It's terrible.
There you go. Yeah,
You know,
totally. Right.
and that's the same as with, like I said, with the music. And that's where I've sold 3/4 of my record collection just because nobody cares. I'm just like, whatever. But I've got a stack of paper about yay thick. I don't know if you only hearing this or seeing it, but yay thick. That's worth like $2,000 now. And it's all like from the 40s to the 80s. And it's just weird small batch poetry books where they did it just like, because people are like, oh, it's a zine, it's not a real book. And I'm all like, this book from 1945, they did
And they
300.
only made 150 of them. Right. Exactly.
And
That's
that's where now I don't even know how I'm just like, I don't want to just like, I don't want to just throw them in the wall. I don't know what to do with them. Like, we're not just putting hands on them because they're old. I got Tennessee Williams' first edition of a 14th play he wrote that never got played. How do you say that word? Never got performed.
right on. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
incredible. Right. And it's incredible to be able to participate in the history of some of these writers that you admire in some manner.
And
Right.
it's just crazy, but that's where literally like my eyes are going. I have to read without. I got to get new glasses every year. Um, but right now, that's I'm like a 16 with the circling back again to like with the politics right now. I'm basically a 16-year-old punk rock kid. I'm an anarchist Marxist at this point. I'm reading Huey P. Newton, Community Builds Resistance. I'm reading crazy, histories of Palestine. I'm reading like How to Hide a Empire. I'm colonialism. Like, I'm like, I don't like any of the like. I'm literally can't talk about it. When Ben went on and talked about ICE, people were like, "Why didn't you say anything?" I'm like, "Oh, you don't want to." I'll get put on all the lists if I start talking online. That's the punk rock part of me. Is like I grew up on Dead Kennedys. That's like, there's never been a good president. Wouldn't we make America grow? Was it great for who? Great for everybody? Show me the point where the utopia. Who, like I
Or
get.
like Obama winning the Nobel Prize when he's, putting these drone strikes out
He
across the
killed.
Middle East, right?
I mean, he was the king of fucking ice, and he fucking killed Syria. Ooh, no, I'm saying, like, I get real, like, you
You
know.
can go deep with that stuff, and there's probably a better use of your energy and mental space and time,
I
right?
mean, part of me wants, and again, I want to know. And that's the thing too. Is like, I don't want to get into conversations without studying, and that's basically. So I'm reading all these political science books. I'm reading a lot of the, anti-colonialists, but I'm also reading a lot of. I discovered philosophy, and yeah, I'm glad I didn't spend a lot of money to take a lot of philosophy, so I'd have to pay that back and not get a real job. But yeah, and I mean that's the thing is like I just study and I read, and I mean the paintings, again, they're stick figures. The titles, they're my folk songs. I do these paintings because they're supposed to be anybody. You know what I mean? Like I don't have. It's not the photorealistic. I was like, we have cameras now. We don't necessarily need a photorealistic anything. I mean, it's great that you technically know how to do that, but yeah, yeah, I don't, yeah, but yeah, my library is my pride and joy right now, and um, it's just yeah. So, and I got big cushy chairs. I read. I got a lamp, and I just again dropped out of high school, discovered in my early 20s, I read some book that told me about Kant, Kant. So I went and bought that whatever book. Holy freaking frack. I was like, yep, way out of my depth, but from there, yeah, like I've read I spent COVID, I read 11 books out loud during COVID online. And
Wow.
yeah, I got mad at people because I was all like, okay, look, there's your acoustic guitar and you're singing. But I was like, where's the stand up? Where's the magicians? Where's drag shows? Where's anything in the world that you have a computer and a camera? You can do anything. Like,
Well, and that actually, one of the questions that I had written out here was to the effect that you are involved in maintaining your bands, helping direct your band's web presence. I remember actually in the documentary film about sort of some of the early years of Lucero, Dreaming in America, which I mean, the directors put it up on YouTube. You're kind of shaking your head. I don't know if you necessarily have.
well, those two, like, it's interesting because have you watched Bright Stars on Lonesome Nights?
I have not. I've not had the opportunity as
Yeah,
yet.
if you can find it, it's somewhere out there. But that's when both of them are a little bit like when you look back at like when you look back at your pictures from high school, you're like, ooh, or whatever.
But one of the comments you make that sort of was like it, you were talking about sort of moving the band forward, and I remember very distinctly like let's get some songs up on the internet. Let's get some MP3s, download them right back when that was the
Yeah.
pre-streaming era, which seems like forever ago. But if you're talking about 2008, 2005, thereabouts, right? I mean, and so now you're talking about, since this COVID sort of took place, and as well being involved with the various kind of, online aspects of your band, it seems to me that you sort of see the potential for technology
Oh,
to enhance and move creativity forward.
I'm the number one fan. Like, I am the number one fan of social media, and the
Okay.
simple fact that is, I mean, personally, it's just whatever. But if you have anything you want to push, you know what I mean? Like, it's it's a marketing tool. It's a tool. Like, my thing is always like a lot. I mean, people like to see a painting, they like it. People read a book, they like it. But a lot of times, they want to be, and that's music. They want to be a part of people's, like, me personally. They're like, oh, I love his porch. I have strangers come take pictures on the porch. Now, my porch is probably more famous than I am, just because I sit
Well,
on
kind of
it.
like the porch of Discord House with Ian
Exactly.
MacKay, right? It's kind of people
No,
just stop by on the street and
and they
just
take
take a
pictures. I
snapshot.
got I got 2 or 3 Airbnbs across the street, and every once in a while, somebody's just like, and you can see them.
I'd rather be in that house for this
Well, no,
rental.
they're
Yeah,
looking at
yeah.
it going, wait a minute, that's Brian. Like, I don't. I mean, I put my address all the time online. I don't care, but
Okay.
but yeah. I again, if you want, I mean, if I want to sell books, I got to take the shirt off and buy the books or whatever. Like, you want to sell the Lucero, it's like, make it interesting. Make them want to feel connected. They want to see behind the scenes. They want to see us at the house. They want to see backstage where we're not doing, like, for us, they're like, it's boring. But some people are like, no, this is the best thing ever. But it is, I don't know. I mean, it's the same as the back page of the free pages or whatever commercial television. You know what I mean? Like, it's I don't know. But yes, I am a fan of social media for moving things. Like, if you want to put pictures of your food, that's great. But am I hearing something, or are you hearing something?
What's that?
I'm hearing some other voice. Is that you or
I
me?
got I got some people sort of on the other
Okay,
side
no,
of the
no.
door
I'm just
here.
making
That's not mine. Sorry
no.
about that.
I'm making sure that I'm all like, oh, I smell
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
And this is. I hear
You're
voices.
good. You're good. That's on mine. Let's.
I was all like, what's my kid doing? But I mean, if you want to move something, or you want to sell something, or you want to promote something, that's what it's there for. In the
That's
end,
right.
And so when people are like, social media whore, social media this, da da da, and it's just like, man, everybody's like, oh, these kids look at screens. I was like, again, I grew up You got up Saturday morning and you watched cartoons from 6 to noon. You didn't go outside until uh, the whatever the sports came on, you
That's
know.
right.
And then and yeah, you rushed home at 7. From noon to 7 you might play outside, but you're like, I got to see Dukes of Hazzard, I got to see Fall Guy, or I got to see whatever show. And I feel like those same people are like, damn, hooping a stick. Kids today don't know, it's just like there's always going to be some distraction. Um, but um, but the social media, again, I just put things that, which for me, it's what's funny stuff that I really like. I'm like, this is amazing. And people are like, nah. And I'm all like, soft, fuzzy picture of Ben. And they're like, yeah. And I'm all like, I didn't think that's the flyer for starting the band with Lucero. That guy's coming over tomorrow. We're going to hang
Are you
out.
serious?
Yeah.
Dope.
He lives down the street, I guess. But I broke my internet. The people thought that was the funniest thing they'd ever seen in their life. And I just thought, I almost didn't post it just because whatever. But yeah, I don't know what hits or doesn't hit, but the people love that. They thought that was hilarious. And but yeah, like I want to move the books. I need to put. I like to paint. If I have a website with my paintings, but I don't have a way to tell you what my website is, what's the point of having the website? You know?
Well, and it's just kind of a way that, things kind of resonate for people. As you say, it's like they feel like they're involved. And as an artist, I have to think that, having, like, for me, just anytime I put something, out on, this Substack newsletter that I do, or, my pal and I, we do this education podcast because we're both two PhD friggin' nerds, right? And
Where is
actually,
that at? I want to watch that.
and well, I'll shoot it over to you, pal. And it's actually because my area, one of the things that led to developing this sort of interview series online, my doctoral specialization or whatever, was using social media for an educational purpose,
Yeah.
basically. And
Well, that
so and so for me, I just sort of see somebody who's sort of, more than savvy with it. You don't have to really know, like, I don't know frig all about how the internet works from a technical level, but
yeah.
I know narrative, I know stories, I know that I'm like pushing on 50 here, getting close to 50, and I know that I've got a level something of experience, something of value that somebody out there, even if it just lands for a few people out there some way, you don't know how that's going to affect them, and you don't know how that's going to spin out into the universe in its own way, right?
Well,
So
that's the thing is I'm not trying to. I mean, again, I wish I had 10,000 more followers because that's 10,000 more people to put eyes on the book. But
that's right.
realistically, I like having a smaller group that has more. Like I make more friends with. Like I said, that guy with the flyer, he reached out, and I was all like, I was like, "Fuck yeah, this is awesome," And I was like, "Come over to the house," And he's like, we might end up being friends for 20 years, but that's how you find people. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is like I've made more friends through Lucero that I've forgotten that I made friends because I'll be like, man, we've been friends. How did we find? No, Lucero. I was like, no, it was well before that. And they're like, no, it's Lucero. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
fuck.
like you were in that class with me that none of us enjoyed back in
That's what
grade
I'm like.
nine
I'm just like
or
punk
whatever,
rock day,
right?
something, something. And they're like, no, it's Lucero. And again, 27, 28 years, I've made lifelong friends. Because the joke sometimes I'm like, ugh, I got to stop hanging out and go do this dumb show. Like it's interrupting, and they're like, we like the dumb show. And I'm all like, oh, I forgot. You
And
like,
it's reached the point for you where it's just so much a part of your DNA and your regular life. But it's like for anything, like you're kind of from the outside of it. The life of a recording and touring musician has kind of the veneer of something exotic, right? If you kind of spend your time in other spaces, it's one of those things like, oh, like TV actor, or
well, that's the
it's
thing.
kind of got this mysticism about it. And I mean, Lucero, right, with Ben's brother Mike being a really accomplished filmmaker, right? You've had some of your music appear on some of his
Yeah.
film
Well, that's,
soundtracks and the like. It's I mean, there's this whole kind of wider kind of, what do you
well,
call it?
I think
Entertainment industry out there that those of us who aren't really part of it are like, huh, You
Well,
know,
that's the thing is we live in a bubble. I mean, and that's the other thing is where we don't. I'm like, why do you have a Lucero tattoo? And they're like, because you didn't. I'm like, we live on the tour bus. We live in this kind of. We don't see sometimes the bigger picture. But yeah, my ex-wife used to get on to me. We'd go out to these parties. She's like, all you did was talk about yourself. I was like, I tried to get that dentist to tell me about his job because I'd be like, and they were
he
like,
wouldn't disclose. He kept asking questions,
well,
right?
it's like, yeah, he's like, they wanted to hear about the band. It's like that's my thing. It's like I've got a bunch of teacher friends. I love hearing that. Like, I'm like, let me hear about your job. Let me hear about this. Like, I'll tell you, I have friends that I've made recently be like, you can hear about Lucero, but you're not going to like it. It's going to the same as you complaining about your boss or complaining about your work. You know what I mean? I was like, it's not woo for me as much as it's my day job. It's like management's making me crazy. If John C doesn't, close the door, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the same thing you're complaining about. It's just, I get up on stage for 2 hours and play for people in the end. And,
Right.
So, but I was like, we can talk about anything. And that's how I make the friends. It's like, I'm Lucero, but I'm also like, oh man, I need a new clutch for the truck. I'm about to build I got to new this or that. Like, I'm like, we'll just talk. And then it'll be like, oh, I leave in July for 2.5 weeks. And they're like, oh shit. Or how was tour? But I got a friend that makes titanium limbs. That sounds so much more interesting than being in a band. I'm sorry. He's building Terminator. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's my whole, like, and he's like, it's not like that at all. And I'm all like, don't wreck my fantasy. I won't wreck your fantasy if you don't wreck my, So yeah, but it's interesting because you forget, like I said, when you invite people in that aren't part of it. But it's also interesting when you hang out with other people that are in bands, and it's kind of like the rest of the world's gen pop, and you're like, you can talk to people like, oh, Punishers, oh, this or that, and they're like, I know, right? And so that is kind of funny when you're just like, Deuce Before Doors. You're like, what? It's like how you find a bathroom, take a poop before they open doors because you don't have a dressing room bathroom,
Right.
And DVD, and everybody's like, what? And you're like, Deuce Before Doors. That might be a little graphic, but it's just, but you know what I mean? But that's the whole joke is like, so there is a language and you do meet people. We did Warped Tour for the whole Warped Tour for like 2011. And
Wow. That is something I would be challenged to imagine you getting up and doing that and embracing it. I don't know. Was it awesome or?
Probably the height of my drinking. The only time I wore shorts on stage, I would put a shirt on just to play the show. I had a cowboy hat and cop shades made. We played 30 minutes, anywhere from 20. Part of our agreement was that we wouldn't play between 12 and 2. Like, we never got shit slots. You know what I mean? Like, we were not going to do it. It's a little grueling, but that's the whole joke is now you see, like, we used to see people before we did it that did Warped Tour together. They'd hug and they'd talk like they were nom together, and we didn't get it. And now we see people that we did Warped Tour with, and it's like, oh, fuck, we lived through something, and yeah, it was nuts, And so, yeah, sometimes you see people, but I don't know. I like to surround myself with interesting people that do all kinds of other things that,
Absolutely.
So,
Well, man, we're really getting close on an hour here, and I really don't want to keep you much more than that.
you can go as long as you want. Like I said, I get long-winded, so you do whatever you
Well,
need to do.
it's been really awesome so far. It is Good Friday for those who care or pay attention to such things. We are on the
this morning.
we are on the Easter weekend here,
Yeah.
which it's however you feel about it. It's kind of got a nice element that I think it's kind of adding to this whole context. I guess I just want to maybe wind it down with in terms of how your 2026 has been so far. We're about a quarter of the way through the year, a third of the way through the year, whatever. What have been some highlights so far, and what do you have coming up between now and the end of the year, whether to do with music or art or literature or any other thing that you can think of that you might be looking forward to at this point, my friend?
I mean, in like 2 weeks, I think April 17th, we're going to play the Stanley Hotel for a weekend from The Shining in Denver.
Okay.
That'll be interesting. It's always fun for me, it's the Dumb and Dumber Hotel, but for everybody else, it's The Shining. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're playing twice as many shows, so we're going out a whole lot this year. We're going to try to write some new stuff. I'm going to try to, around next Christmas, I hope to have this book of the little vignettes or what, I don't know what to call them, about growing up in the South with almost getting shot by my friends because we were being dangerous with guns or running around with fire, burning down
So
stuff.
some kind of memoir, some kind of snapshots of an era.
Yeah, well, it's like I tell all these stories to a lot of people, and they're like, "What?" But I was laughing because it's like between 11 and 13, not punk rock. We were young. We were just doing dumb shit out in these, undeveloped, But it's like for me, I'm writing a Gen X Stand By Me to some degree, and
Awesome.
the way I see it is just stories. So I hope to have that done and out. Ideally, I'm going to have a rough draft of the novel done, and that's the big thing for me is I've got 12 sections. I've got notes on each one. I'm going to go in and write all the notes down and see what needs to be added and try to create a structure. Again, never written a novel, don't know how. And so it's kind of the joke is like, if I can get this one out, I can probably write one a year after that because I know kind of the framework
You
for it.
will you will have found a process. You will have found the
Yeah.
way to
And
do
right
it for
now,
you.
and so on that end, it's like I'm trying to have an art show. We'll see. I got extra paintings, but I want to get a group of people together and have like a kind of a co-op-y kind of just fun thing. But yeah, he graduates. We got to get him out of school, get him a license, get him turned into an electrician, um, get my truck running, and just
My 16-year-old who's going to be in his last year of high school next year is in fact looking at going into electrician. We got him set up for going into an electrician trade as his thing next year. So that's kind of funny.
yeah,
He's
no,
16 right now. He's turning 17 this
that's what
year.
Henry was all like trade school, and I was all like, you sound like an old white guy saying internet. You need to. What are you going to do in trade school? And then my friend I grew up with, Dari, you don't know, I'm just using. He is a third generation. They own Schwartz Electrical. That's been, and I was like, Dari, remember that time in '92 I saved you from getting beat up? And I didn't really. It was just fun, but I was like, make my kid an electrician. And so he's like, I'll put him in the warehouse till we need to start apprenticing somebody. And so that's we just got. He finishes May 5th, so we have like 4 weeks where I'm all like,
It's go time.
let's not fuck this up,
Right.
And so, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, time's granular, man. This is the whole thing. Is it's just I'm gonna keep writing these stories. I have like where you can't tell quite, but I don't know how to make that turn around. But this is my work area I posted where the spare room now is turned into where I make the books. I got the writing room in my room. I've got the workshop in the painting studio. I've got more areas, but right now it's like, yeah, I can print, crank up, hand print everything in this area. And the third pressing is just going to be open ended. That's going to be the book from now on.
Okay.
And then I don't know if I sell it one or two a day or one or two a week, but and then yeah, I'm going to sit down and write out the stories, try to lay that out, see if I can get 14 little vignette like memoir type things, just talking about crazy stuff. Put that out, and but yeah, I mean that's the thing. We've just been doing it so long. It's just like tour, Christmas show. Ben's got his solo stuff. Ben's got everybody takes off around the time their kids have birthdays. I don't know. We're going to be gone in July, I think. So I'm going to clear the beds, but I don't know if I'm going to plant too much because that's a whole month of not getting the water stuff. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It kind of all blurs. That's how I wake up and realize we've been doing it for 28 years because, everything just kind of blurs together. So right now I learned how to prepare a book through the poetry thing. So now I can The plan for me is if I put out a couple of poetry books, the storybook, somebody, a publisher, I can try to add, be like, hey, I've got these 6 books. I've sold a few of them, but you want to make a book? Like I'd like to find a publisher.
Absolutely.
And so, but that's basically is, like I said, once he's out of school, it frees up a whole lot of weird time for me because I don't have to get up at any point. And when we're not on tour, yeah, I have to have hobbies. It helps me keep from my brain from thinking bad thoughts or doing bad things. So,
Well, you are absolutely creative across a whole wide range of areas here. And it has been my profound, deep pleasure to meet you and to just be able to just chat with you about this
yeah,
stuff because I just find anything to do with creativity in not even just the arts, but just generally, right, is just really
well, that's the thing.
interesting, fascinating stuff. And it's always really great to see somebody who's who's got it as much in their DNA and as much as part of their daily life as somebody like you. And again, just thanks for sharing everything with us today. Thanks a lot for being willing to have this conversation with
Of
a
course.
stranger up here in Canada, my friend.
No way, this is great. Don't forget to send me that teacher podcast or
I will,
education
man.
podcast.
Absolutely. Get on it right away here. But in the meantime, is there anything else you wanted to possibly share with anybody else who's just kind of checking things out here, my friend?
I don't even know. If you want to introduce somebody to Lucero, I would recommend Live in Atlanta, because that just seems to be the fun one. We got new stuff coming out. I'm never really good at this whole thing. I feel like I've talked for an hour. I've pretty much knocked it all out. But again, thanks for wanting to talk. And sorry,
Well, my pleasure. And we are going to have up on our website links to venableexplorationssociety.org. We're going to have some screenshots. We're going to have some probably Bandcamp and YouTube embeds for Lucero. So anybody who's checking this out on YouTube or however you happen to be finding it, it's all going to be in a contextualizing blog post. And it's going to be hopefully maybe we can even once you get some of these other projects a little bit further along, we can chat about it some other time, Brian. I would enjoy that a lot.
Just let me know.
Awesome, my friend. Take care. Thanks a lot, everybody, for listening.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks a lot, Brian, for being part of it. And take care, everybody.
All right. See y'all.
Bye for now.